said with his own mouth, he spent 130 million in Bere, and he's willing to spend more because parties are important. So please, maybe you need to check the TV shots with your boss. And that 130 is a very conservative figure because he may have spent over 500 million. Of course, you cannot go on record to speak about 500 million. We must give a conservative figure. So that's number one. So he is on the ballot. That's for a fact. But number two, Dismas, I want to say this. I believe in the words of Kajwang. Loyalty, faithfulness, and fidelity to the party will be number one consideration.
To the party or party leader?
To the party. No, I never say to the party. I say to the party.
Party leader.
To the party. I stand with those words on DCP. Capacity. Me, I want to start with capacity because you can be royal, but you don't have capacity. The together is the issue. Capacity to perform the work. If I'm vying for senator, for example, in Nakuru, I must demonstrate capacity to be able to understand what a senator can do. But number two, you must be loyal to the party because it's many parties that make the national movement. So that's very, very important. But number three, to answer your question, and I will say this. Because it's important to talk. We're in this country to talk, friend. Let me tell you. This whole issue about Africa Forward Summit is a PR exercise, a gimmick, big in terms of PR and all that grease and shallow on content. It's not the first time we have had such conferences that President Ruto has attended since 2022. Some of them here, some of them abroad, like 30 or 50. But tell me from 2022, what has come out of it in his 5th year now? You cannot begin telling us about conferences in your 5th year when you are going home. You first of all tell us what you have done with the other conferences, with the other MOUs, with the other taxpayers' money, about 20 trillion that you have been milking from Kenyans. So we are not the people to be excited, man. We know what we know. So we are here telling Kenyans, it has ended, go back to your work. Just ignore, assume it didn't happen. Do you know why? 2 reasons. MOU is simply an intention. MOU is what when you are bored and you have been eating taxpayers' money and you have been hosting all these things and you are tired, you want to show people, because you cannot go home empty-handed, you tell the technical people, scribble something, please bring it for cameras. You know, we have been part of that process. So these ones may not. I know. These are dramas that you do behind curtains. And then you come shake hands. MOU, did you hear anywhere where the financial architecture was discussed? Did you hear anybody saying whether it's a grant or a loan or when it will happen and timelines? Did you see any deal signed? No. An MOU signals starting of negotiations. It can take 3 years. Macron is going home next year. William Ruto is going home next year. What will happen to it? Because it's not structured on anything. The deals you are talking about, who told you those are our priorities in Kenya? Who told you? Is there any study that was done to show? Number 3, how can French, let's talk here as professionals. How can French trust this government when they were conned out of the Olympic Summit Road? You tell me. I mean, does it make sense economically? I've done political economy. Listen, you can't come con France, the 3 French firms that literally bid and won the Olympic Summit under Uhuru Kenyatta. You come and con them out of the road, all right? Then you pay our own taxes, the money. Then you come and host the same French, come and tell we have that 8 companies. They will not invest a dime. I can tell you this. And when they invest, we come back to this show. I know some things about how these things are done.
And that's the validity of the statement by Regatta.
That is the validity of our statement as DCP, that this was pure PR. We never dressed down anybody. We were just telling the Guterres, man, you are dining with the biggest warlord ever in Africa, recorded, right? Just to remind him, maybe he didn't know. You are dining with a warlord. We just reminding him. Don't go do pressers in the States when you are dining with a guy that we are talking about. So I think this must be clear. We don't want shows. We don't want showbiz here. What the president should be doing at Route 4 in 2 months. Please come up with done things. You have spent out of money. Come with something which is done. So please
let's allow Mwalimu to also contribute to that discussion so that we come back to matters more radically. And
I think on the Africa Forward Summit, it was co-hosted by President Macron and President Ruto and chaired with an agenda properly laid out. And it was pre-planned. And within the Kenyan context and framework, the 11 agreements signed. And of course, trying to bring in the Mau Summit Rironi Road to look like you want to,
of course,
provoke bitterness from the side of France, I think is playing cheap politics.
They cannot invest anymore.
And you see the statement by Rigathi Gachagua, which was very embarrassing in the first place. In as much as a country we have got free speech, but there are limits within the domains that we must engage in some civility, whether it's in the diplomatic circles, whether it's in the political space, and we choose also what to say when and how. That press brief was so embarrassing.
To who?
To say the least. Very embarrassing.
Okay.
And so misplaced. And it offered no alternative other than to try and tear down and portray the usual normal bitterness of a jilted person, which did not help the process. I think it was crude, to say the least. When you look at the take homes of the African Forward and engaging one of the G7 countries in depth and in details, that Africa 2063 agenda and reopening Africa as not a begging continent, but as a partner in development, as a region that can industrialize, a region that can create jobs for the youth, a region that can empower the youth, because Africa will have the most youthful continent, the youth to participate meaningfully in the global economy. Those are good things. We must think about today and the future. And agreements that do not work are always discarded.
But there's a question of the optics.
And a partnership that works. And by the way, these are not just optics to impress.
Yes. But
they're not optics to impress. These are pragmatic.
You mentioned the fact that Donald Trump is in China and they've had bilateral talks. And we showed this earlier. And when you talk about equal partnership, does it come off as equal partnership when one of the leaders of the probably developed countries, Japan, Russia, whichever, is summoning 30 African leaders to one forum? They used to have this in their country. This is the first time France has decided to come this way. President Ruto was one of the critics of this format of engagement, that you do not appear as equal partners when 30 African leaders are shepherded into one forum, and then a leader of the Western world is talking down at them.
Well, in my view, when you talk about equal partnerships, that again is a fallacy. You cannot have equal partnership. Like, for instance, the meeting today between the US and China, it cannot be equal partnership because one country is bigger from a military perspective, from an economic perspective, even from a population perspective. When you talk about the population of China and the US, you cannot compare. You can't compare the militaries, you can't compare the economic powers. And in my view, in international relations, every state must identify their selfish interest in every single meeting. So if we go by the conclusion made by Dr. Mbai, which in my view is anchored on erroneous premises, that the Africa Summit was a complete waste of time, if we go by that premises for a second, which would be ridiculous, we had about 5,000 delegates who were in Nairobi for maybe a week. Most of the hotels in Kenya, 5-star, 4-star, 3-star, had 100% bed occupancy. If you're looking for a vehicle for hire, you couldn't get. So, assuming this thing was a failure, according to Mbai and DCP, but at least for 2 weeks, hotels that maybe would be having 20% bed occupancy had maybe 100%. So there's Mama Mboga who sold their githeri, there are people who sold their products, so they made a fortune. Then again, assuming that the meeting as co-chaired by President Macron and Ruto was a waste of time. But Kenya had an opportunity to have bilaterals. I saw the president having so many bilateral meetings with the different heads of state and governments and cabinet secretaries having meetings, even discussing the candidature of Njoki Ndung. That one cannot be counted as a waste of time. But the Africa Summit itself, and you've stated this, the first time it's happening in an English-speaking country. In my view, that is a big deal from a diplomatic perspective. And in my view, what is happening here is a case of sour grapes. Nobody is expecting instant coffee from this thing, like the ones we are being served in the morning.
I'm still waiting for my question.
This thing is brewed coffee. Yeah, this thing is brewed coffee. So the fact that you've actually signed an MOU, that means that you are beginning the process. Now, initially you said that when President Ruto took office, and there were, I think the first meeting was, it was a meeting in the UK, where the African heads of states were placed in a bus, and he complained. He must have realized that having 30 heads of state and government coming to your country is a big deal.
So his criticism then is no longer valid?
In my view, that criticism, the only thing he wanted to raise is that we are Africans and we must be treated with a certain level of respect. Please do not place us in a bus. But for me, I'd rather look at the substance. This summit here, what does it portend for Kenya? I saw business and corporate leaders. And for me, as a Kenyan, I was very proud when I saw Dr. James Mwangi, the group managing director for Equity, in the same, to use the Gen Z language, in the same WhatsApp group with Aliko Dangote. Because, for the longest time, we've not had a Kenyan sitting in the high table.
So you support this format of meetings where African leaders are summoned, because even the French Africa Summit previously was held in France, and the African heads of state had to travel there to meet Emmanuel Macron in a group, as a group. It has happened in Japan, it has happened in Russia. You support that format?
Well, for me, I'm not going to use the word summons. I would say invited. And if I was a head of state, I would go for any single meeting, even if I'm going on a border, or I'm going on a bus, provided that meeting serves the selfish interests of Kenya. Like, for instance, you had the Egyptian president in Kenya, and you saw the videos of a security man altercation. You discussed it at some stage. But Egypt consumes Kenyan tea. What are the opportunities of increasing?
We can enjoy or engage Egypt anytime on a bilateral level as equal partners. Well, it is the format I'm looking at.
Well,
the format where one country engages another, even you say even in this instance that they still have those sessions, as opposed to how Africa is engaging with France as a group.
Fred, accepting reality is the beginning of wisdom.
We are not at that level.
We cannot be equal partners. Even this meeting being hosted by the G7, this gentleman called Macron knows that while the US is expected to attend, but they're not equal partners, because whatever Trump wants is what is going to be discussed. He would host. I mean, don't you remember that South Africa?
Do you agree with that?
No. Let me make the last point. Don't you remember that South Africa has been kicked out of international meetings simply because of Donald Trump? Donald Trump says that if you're going to have South Africa, I don't like their position.
And that is the level.
I'm not coming on board.
So our engagement with France is almost paternal, like, or even a big brother, that when they come here, they're coming to address this group of African leaders together, like your problems are all the same, and that's why you're coming to talk to me. Dr. Mbaye,
finally, Fred,
I'm talking about this because there are critics of that format of engagement.
Fred, it appears you've read The Animal Farm. All animals are not equal. It would be erroneous for any Kenyan to imagine that Kenya and French or France, we are equal. It would even be erroneous, even when you're having the East African community.
We still have our heads of states visiting those countries and engaging at the same level.
This is a very wrong format. It's a slavery in the modern world. It's neocolonialism. It's not necessary. It's a waste of time. This president should have done something. Let me be very clear, because I like to be fair. If it was some domestic tourism, some visits, the way people travel to Dubai every year, 20 million visitors, there's no harm in people traveling to Kenya and filling the hotels. But don't come and camouflage that as trade diplomacy and come in here to get some amount of gains from France. Let's not mix the two issues. I don't mind people traveling. Even me, I'm a domestic tourist. I move on and, with my family and people, and move around. And I encourage that in Nakuru, people to travel. But don't come summon that heads of state and government. Because of who? Because of your what? This issue of neocolonialism is still with us here. That's what France has used in Western Africa until they discovered it's hot air. They don't have that capacity. Even them, they have problems in their own whatever. This kind of, look, I